Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here with the Spartan Rocketry Club, continuing our build of the Quest Terrier-Orion. Now, it has actually been over a month in real life since I last recorded this, beginning of school being a busy time and all. But anyway, in the intervening time, I have at least I've finished sanding and rounding these fins, both sets, and I also took the time to put the line markers on. Now the Quest, the way of doing this is a little bit different. It's pretty similar to the bits that you cut out from an Estes kit, except that there's only one line to mark. So I kind of like having lines on both sides, make sure that you did a decent job lining them up. But basically, if you just put this at the back end, you don't really need two, hopefully. And using the old door jam trick, which at some point I should probably actually film, since you never get to see that part. Anyway, the other things that, so if I recall correctly, the last time I tried my best to get this in, and I ended up not doing a particularly good job, so we got to try that again. This end of the tube is the here's the section that I tried to do this on first. So I sanded it down a little bit on the inside. It's still a little rough, but anyway, it would make a whole lot more sense to put this in the other end. So I'm going to test fit it first. I'm going to put it in backwards because I don't really want to take all the time of threading it through. So this looks pretty good. And it fits. It's the second part right here. This is a little snug, but it should be fine. Alright, so let's give this another go. Second crack at this. There we go. Glue's a little crowded up. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to get my dowel here, so I'm going to get a little bit of glue and put it on the inside as per usual, and then I'm going to put a little bit on the inside here, and then I'm going to thread this in, making sure that it's kind of like I'm putting it in backwards. That's probably not enough glue, but it's at least a place to start. And I want it about 1.5 inches inside. Just kind of eyeballing it. You certainly could measure on your wood scrap here. It wasn't anywhere near enough. If you want it to be plenty accurate, my glue's a little clogged. That's fine. But you don't. It's not really that important. The only thing that's particularly important is that you don't put the glue ring in too far in, because then you won't, when you push the engine mount in, the motor mount in, you won't get to that point. And that, of course, would be problematic. Anyway, continuing on here, I'm going to put a thin ring just on the inside. There we go. And now I need to drop this in. Now I'm going to use a pencil here. I'm going to kind of twist it around a couple times, or at least try. There we go. So it makes it a little bit easier as to just trying to push a string through. That's not particularly easy to do. So pencil goes in, pencil goes down the hole, takes the motor mount with it. I am going to get some glue on this. It's kind of unavoidable, I think. Okay. And then here we go, like so. Looks like it's past the danger part there. I did kind of bend the tube a little bit. Now I want the yellow part and the white part to be flush. Now that's not as easy as you might think, because we got the engine hook in already. So usually I just push things down to get them flush. I'm going to use a tape ring so I can avoid the engine hook there, and just give it a little push. And that worked pretty nicely. Through, honestly, just dumb luck, I have the engine hook lined up with the launch lug line. Like, almost exactly. That's That is a brilliant coincidence. I didn't actually mean to do that right now, but I did want to eventually. So lovely. That is fantastic. Saves me a little bit of trouble. If it weren't quite lined up, I would do my best to try to spin it around. Now, last little bit here. I want to get myself a fillet around the launch, sorry, not the launch, the motor mount and the main body tube. This can be a little dodgy. I'm going to try to drop some glue in there, like directly just squeeze it out of the bottle. Sometimes this works wonderfully, but there isn't a lot of room here. So I'm going to angle the tube just slightly. I don't really want all that much glue, so I'm not going to be squeezing it all that hard. I did try to clean out the nozzle a little bit. The launch lug, or not the launch lug, that engine hook makes this a little bit difficult. But if you keep the tube angled just a little bit, gravity will pull it down more or less into the corner, which is where you want it to go. Now this is obviously not perfect, especially over here. I didn't do a particularly good job. That's fine. Now this is actually too wide, so I'm going to turn around the other end. And I'm just going to kind of brush it in like so, as best I can. Get myself a bit of a fillet, just for added strength. Unfortunately, we can't do this on the other side, but because we did push through glue, a little bit kind of backs up and does make a little bit of a fillet on the other end as well, just by virtue of the fact that we pushed it. Okay, so that went certainly better than the last time I tried it. Motor mounts in place. Should be good. All right, moving on then. The next bit of stuff that we need to do is attach the fins. Before I do that though, so I did already draw the lines. That's the next step in the instructions, and then there's a whole bit about getting the fins smooth. I already did that too. The last thing I'm going to do is I need to do some measurement. So it looks like I need to put 1/2 inch marks. So these fins go with this, and these fins go with the upper body tube. And in both cases, I need to put 1/2 inch marks away from the edges, because apparently that's where the fins are going to go. They're going to be all 1/2 inch away from the end. So let's grab a pencil, actually for drawing or writing this time, and my ruler. Okay, so I'm going to go through this quickly. My ruler, some of the marks have worn off because this is like a family heirloom ruler. This is my grandfather's, and he certainly had it for a long time, and it's been 15 years or so since I inherited it. Oops, that is the launch lug line. That's why I wrote an L on it. I don't actually want a mark there. Instead, I want one at 4 inches. So since I'm doing all this, there's my 4-inch line for the launch lug, and back to 1/2 inch lines. Anyway, the first inch of rulers does tend to get kind of chewed up sometimes. So certainly what you could do is you could move down to another line like so. So measure it 2 inches. That is a lot clearer. I certainly could be doing that. But it's a little, oops, dropped the tube. It's a little messy, but it's not that important. Anyway, same deal here. Go through and mark off at 1/2 inch. This actually does matter, of course, because you do not want the fins staggered. If you have the fins staggered, then they will be encountering the airflow, what they're trying to, their entire job, right, is to change the airflow. Well, if you have one in front of the other, then they're going to be encountering the airflow at different times, and therefore affecting it differently, and essentially you'll just end up with less effective fins, and maybe it'll end up veering one direction over another, and of course, that is something to be avoided. All right. Anyway, yeah, might as well. We'll put the fins on. This video might run a little bit on the long end, but that's okay. All right, so these fins go with this, as I said before. I'm going to take this the shock cord, and I'm going to stuff it in here because honestly, it's gotten in the way like more than once already, just sitting out. So, and it is very much not wanting to go in there. Too bad. All right. Just make sure you're putting the fins on at the right end, the one that you marked off, the one where the motor mount is, because otherwise you will have a not functional rocket. Incidentally, yeah, my motor mount here seems a little bit warped for some reason. Not entirely sure why that is. I'm definitely going to have to make sure. I can use one of these just to check to make sure that it's still like roughly round. Yeah, it'll fit. Not a problem. Anyway, now the fins. They are trapezoidal. Trapezoidal fins are easy to use and pretty aerodynamic, all things being equal. But they do actually have like a front and a back, even though they look to be isosceles trapezoids. This is the front and this is the back, and I can tell this because the grain of the wood is running like this. And we want the grain to be parallel to the leading edge. So that's how it's supposed to go. If you put it on backwards, it wouldn't make a huge difference, but still, let's do it right. So, probably help if I had the glue bottle open. Our typical approach here is thin bit of glue, brush it even with the dowel or the piece of balsa scrap or whatever it is you're using. Let it start to set for about 30 seconds, and then we'll add some additional glue, and then we'll attach. Yeah, so this is going to contribute to the length of the video. Perfectly fine. I guess we'll all manage, or you won't watch it. I mean, please do, but you know, fast forward maybe? I don't know. All right, additional glue. That's been probably long enough. All right, and it's time to attach. Again, making sure that I have it going in the correct direction. I'm just going to pick an arbitrary start point, one of the 4 lines. I use this back part here as my anchor to try to center it, and then I'm going to just kind of roll it forward. Doing my best to make sure that it is centered on the line. I'm going to adjust it ever so slightly because I can see that it's not. Yeah. There we go. I'm going to hold it for about 30 seconds or so to let the glue at least start to set. Whenever you're attaching fins, it is a balancing act. It is a balancing act between getting it done quickly, obviously, but the quicker you go, the more likely it is that the fins will fall off because the glue hasn't set well enough. And doing it so slowly that by the time you have all 4 fins on, the first fin is pretty thoroughly set and you can't make any last moment adjustments, which would be bad. So there we go. I'm brushing off the little bits of glue that are excess that's seeped out. They were all on this side because I guess that's where that was the angle that I approached things, so it's squished out this way more than anything else. And just a quick spot check. It looks fine this way, and it looks like about a 90-degree angle, but we won't really be able to figure that out until we get all the fins on and we can actually check it. Now I'm standing it up over here, and you can see there's the fin. Hopefully I don't jostle it or bump it or do anything dumb that would make it fall over, especially fall over in such a way that would knock the fin off. Frequently I like to use something to assist in standing it up, especially if it's a narrower tube. These fins are not particularly big considering how big the rocket is, so they aren't going to provide too much of an off-centered center of gravity while I've only got one on, so hopefully it won't make much of a difference. If it were a thinner tube, like when I do the other one, I'm definitely going to put it on something to assist with stability. So it can tilt, but it's not going to fall the whole way over. And typically I use stuff like, here's a paint bottle. That might be too large, but maybe this glue bottle will work fine. And just put the tube over top. Anyway, again, the pressure here is, I want to be moving quickly enough so that the glue on that first fin will not completely set by the time I want to make last minute adjustments. But I want this not to fall off right now. This is the challenging part, when it's at a right angle, when it's parallel with the ground, then gravity's pulling on it, and the glue is going to be tested as much as it ever truly is. Alright, I didn't quite line things up at the back end there right initially, so I had to shift it forward. I don't love that, but hopefully it won't make much of a difference. Again, I can't truly see whether I'm on the line very well or at a 90-degree angle at the moment, but I'll worry about that after the glue is set for about 30 seconds and I've cleaned up the excess that I can see is squished out facing me. Alright, so clean that up. Alright, it looks pretty good on the line, and is it a right angle? I mean, it looks pretty good. Hopefully. Okay, two more. So if you have to err in one direction or the other, speed or letting the glue set, I would probably want to let the glue set. If this is your first rocket that you are gluing things on, well, you probably should have chosen something simpler, honestly, to begin with. But if this really is the first try that you're doing gluing balsa wings onto something, it's entirely possible that your fins aren't going to be set very well, so they're not going to be angled properly. But I would rather deal with pretty stiff glue at the very end that might not be easy to adjust than I would want to race through this and have the fins flop off repeatedly, because every time they flop off it just gets ever so slightly more difficult to attach them properly, because you get glue, thin layers of glue partially dried underneath where you want the fin to go, and that just makes things harder, and it can get frustrating. If the fin falls off for the third time, sometimes it's just like, why am I doing this? Alright. Attaching this, making sure again it's going in the right direction, the grain is parallel with the leading edge. It looks like it's pretty much in the right place on the back. Squish it forward. That's really great if you're ever so slightly off. Right at the instant that you put it down, you can slide it ever so slightly, and it doesn't, the glue hasn't begun to set. So that's like the best. But half the time you can't see well enough to really know that's the case. I saw ever so slightly I was off. I was a little bit back too far, so I just nudged it forward in the first moments that it was on. So hopefully everything looks pretty good when I check it here momentarily. Alright, clean up the glue and check my alignment. Looks pretty good. And again, I have no idea if I'm at 90-degree angles. I mean, I can check across now. They look pretty good. Now, by the way, you can look down here. This one, the like straight line that these two are making looks fine. This one is pretty seriously off. Off from 90 degrees relative to those two, so I'm going to try to adjust that quickly. Alright, last fin, and then alignment check. Okay, By the way, too, these fins are on the thicker side. The balsa sheets that these came out of were fairly thick for balsa, which makes this whole process much easier. You know, the thinner the balsa, the less glue you have on it. First of all, it's harder to get the glue on it properly, but the thinner the glue, the less purchase it has, the less, the less hold it has, and that makes the whole thing more and more unpleasant. So fortunately, these fins are not particularly big, so they're not trying to flop over due to gravity as much, and the amount of surface area for the glue to hold on to is pretty good. So this is, knock on wood of course, but this is not the world's most difficult fin attachment job. Of course, this is kind of like, of all the parts of the rocket build, this is the, I don't know, potential, the one that has the most potential for like lasting negative outcomes. Or at least it could be the most annoying. I don't know. Depends on your painting ability, I suppose. Alright, last bit here. Got it in the right place, more or less. And down it goes. The first one, of course, is fairly easy to put on because you can have the tube on the ground and you don't have to worry about any of the other fins. The more fins you got on, the more things you have to avoid. The more you have, it's like I'm holding it up in the air now because obviously I can't put it down. It would be lying on a fin. That's annoying. But that does make this the most difficult part. Okay, a little bit longer on the glue setting, and then we will check. Alright, clean up the glue. Look at the lines. It looks, I don't know, it looks like it's a little off this way to me, but it's at least on the line nicely. Okay, now it is time to check the alignment. I'm going to check first off, just kind of eyeballing it. So I'm just looking to see that the top two, the up and down fins, as I see them right now, you can look at it I guess, these two should be basically in a straight line, and these two should be in a straight line. Now this one's pretty clearly not. I also want to make sure that they appear to be at right angles with each other, the two pairs. Now, this is going to be ever so slightly harder to check the alignment. Now, normally I'd just say flip it over and see where the fins are, and I have a nice grid set up here on my cutting board. Unfortunately, since I have the hook there, I can't just let this sit flat. Fortunately, though, I can at least stand it on the hook and do my best to make sure that the middle of the rocket is right on the cross of the grid line, which it is, and then check to see that all the fins appear to be right in line with the grid. Now, this isn't going to be perfect because the engine hook does make this more difficult, but this appears to be pretty good. I can't see any obvious, like if there is a fin that isn't right, it's off by a couple degrees tops, and it very well, I can't tell. Alright, so this is as good as it's going to get. It is time for this to dry. There are more fins to attach, but I'm not going to do that for now. Incidentally, the drying approach, here's my bottle of paint. I'm going to flip the rocket upside down, which of course you can't. It looks like this, right? I'm just going to let it sit over yonder. So it's straight up and down. I don't want it resting on anything. That's good enough. Alright, thanks for watching. Next video, we'll attach the other fins, I guess, and go from there. So thanks for watching.